When a 14-year-old boy with behavioral issues fails to return home after school on a Friday, his parents aren't too concerned. The teen has been known to stay at a friend's house for the night if he's angry with his parents or with his girlfriend. And on this particular Friday, the boy is upset because his smartphone, his cricket phone, is cracked and it's not working. And his parents aren't exactly rushing out to buy him a new one. They're telling him, hey, you broke it, you're going to have to earn the new one. Now, usually the young man comes home on Saturday after he calms down. But when he fails to arrive home by his curfew Saturday night, his parents begin to worry, and his father then drives to the police station around midnight to report his son missing. Hi, I'm T, and this is Bed Crime Stories Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my storytelling, please consider a membership or a donation. Today's case is that of Harley Dilly. So grab a drink, find a soft seat, and let's get started. It's the morning of Friday, December 20th, 2019, in Port Clinton, Ohio. The temperature is hovering around 36 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 2 degrees Celsius. 14-year-old Harley Dilly is trying to get out of going to school by claiming he's sick. However, his mother, Heather, wasn't born yesterday, and she isn't playing today. She's seen these same behaviors before in Harley as well as in his older sister, Ashlyn. Heather tells Harley in no uncertain terms to get his arse out of bed because it's the last day before Christmas break. So Harley gets up, he gets ready, and he heads out the door for his walk to school around 7 a.m. Now, Harley's a bright boy, a very good writer, and an overall good kid, according to his mom, Heather. He's also the mama's boy of the family, which includes his father Marcus, his older sister Ashlyn, and his 4-year-old brother Rory, who is actually Ashlyn's son. Heather and Marcus are raising Rory because Ashlyn isn't yet mother material. Now, while Heather insists Harley is a good kid at heart, he does have some conditions that influence his behavior. He's been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome as well as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and something called oppositional defiant disorder. The latter is a behavioral disorder characterized by persistent patterns of angry, irritable moods and defiant or vindictive behavior toward authority figures such as parents and teachers. Harley also suffers from PTSD after having been hit at age 2 with a belt by Ashlyn. Harley also has allergies, sinus issues, and asthma. By all accounts, Harley is a bit of a handful for his parents, his teachers, and even some of his classmates. He's quick to anger, especially against mom and dad, and he tends to then go on social media to vent about them. Nothing like airing your dirty laundry. And while Harley is intelligent, he's not necessarily wise and savvy. After all, he's still just 14. His brain isn't fully developed. And like a lot of teens, Harley struggles with asserting his burgeoning independence while still being a minor, living under his parents' roof and rules. He's also got a slightly reckless streak, and I say that because he's been known to get onto social media while sitting in the bathtub and share his name, his address, his phone number with strangers far and wide. He wants to be famous, and he wants to do it on social media. He sees that as his ticket to stardom. Harley is also defiant at school with his classmates. Recently, he slapped another kid, and the kid's parents are pressing charges, so that is not good. He also apparently kicked a boy in the cojones and landed in detention last Friday for that. Harley has also been on probation as a result of his behaviors. So clearly there's some stuff going on with Harley. And part of that might be down to his mother's recent health scare. Heather was hospitalized with heart issues, and she actually died 8 times while on the table. Harley is someone who lives by routine. Think Rain Man. He takes 3 baths a day. He only eats certain foods like hot fries and bacon pizza, completely ignoring all fruits and vegetables. I think a lot of kids like that diet. And while he can be what you'd call naughty to the point of needing counseling, he's also somebody who still loves to play with his G.I. Joes. He still loves to cuddle with Heather. Unfortunately for Harley, ever since his mom's health scare, she hasn't been keeping as close an eye on him as she used to. She's also busy sewing leggings for her business, Dilly's Designs, and raising 4-year-old Rory. Harley's dad, Marcus, drives a garbage truck. And although he tried to get Harley into going outside to ride mini bikes and go-karts, Marcus has found that Harley prefers playing video games inside and hanging out with his friends. Now, when Harley doesn't return home from school on the afternoon of Friday, December 20th of 2019, Heather and Marcus aren't overly concerned. They're used to Harley staying over at a friend's house on Fridays and then coming home Saturday morning. Unfortunately, this past pattern has made Heather and Marcus maybe a tad lax. It's not until Harley fails to return home by his Saturday night curfew, and after Marcus drives by the houses of his friends and sees that nobody's home, that Marcus Dilly decides to drive to the police station to report Harley missing. Marcus arrives at the Port Clinton Police Department right around midnight. Now, by that point, Harley hadn't been heard from or seen in 40 hours. Marcus tells the cops that Harley got mad because of his broken phone and that he sometimes stays at a friend's house for a night. But Marcus also makes it clear that Harley isn't the type to stay away for more than one night, and he's definitely not a kid who runs away. When the cops ask if Harley has ever threatened to unalive himself, Marcus says no, but he points out that Harley is a baby when it comes to being outside and cold. And since it's late December in Ohio and the nighttime temperatures are around 16 degrees Fahrenheit, Marcus is beginning to worry. He describes Harley as being 4 feet 9 inches tall and weighing around 100 pounds. Marcus reports that Harley was last seen wearing his prescription eyeglasses, gray sweatpants, a maroon puffer jacket, a brown jersey, and black sneakers. Now the race is on to find Harley. The police ask Marcus about Harley's friends, and Marcus names 3. There's a guy named James Jr. and Daniel. They're brothers, and then there's another friend also named James. On Sunday, the police go to 5 different houses in a period of 3 hours. They visit a house on 2nd Street to speak to one of Harley's friends. Once there, the cops are redirected by the friend's grandfather to 7th Street. There, the detectives speak to the father of another of Harley's friends. The father says that his son was with Harley and a 3rd boy after school on Thursday. The father names another boy that his son and Harley were with that day, and the dad says that he took his son and that other boy to a Cavs game on Friday night. Now, Harley is a big sports fan, and he adores the Cleveland Cavaliers. And while Harley wanted to go to the game as well, the friend's dad did not have a 4th ticket. It's possible Harley might still be alive if he'd gone to the game. The police, with Marcus Dilly in tow, next visit the home of 2 other of Harley's friends, but nobody answers the door. The police also speak to Harley's mother, Heather, at length. Heather tells them to try speaking to Harley's ex-girlfriend, Tessa. And Heather says that the last time she saw Harley was on Friday morning. The 3rd boy that Harley was with on Thursday at first told the cops that he saw Harley on Friday after school. But unfortunately, the police aren't able to verify that, and it's more likely that this friend saw Harley on Thursday. Next, the police pay a visit to Harley's ex-girlfriend, Tessa. Her dad tells the cops that he hasn't seen Harley in more than a week. And Tessa shares that Harley never expressed a desire to run away. And a friend who saw Harley on Thursday before his disappearance said Harley appeared to be in a good mood. So there's really no reason for him to run away. The cops then go back to the house where 2 of Harley's friends live, James Jr. and Daniel, and they speak to their mother. She tells the officers that she last saw Harley on Thursday when he was playing with her 2 sons. At this point, the police advise Marcus Dilly to return home and to contact them if he finds out anything new. Around 2:30 a.m. on Sunday, December 22nd, The cops have dispatch issue a be on the lookout order for Harley. Port Clinton Police Chief Robert Hickman and his officers, including some from the Drug Task Force, begin their investigation by interviewing Heather and Marcus Dilly, along with Harley's closest friends. The police also gather surveillance footage from a sober living halfway house that's right next to the Dilly residence, as well as from the nearby Magruder Hospital. And they do see Harley on some security camera footage from the night of Thursday. Harley walked out of his house that night around 8 p.m. unbeknownst to his parents. He goes somewhere for about 8 minutes and then is seen running back home as if he's in a hurry. Heather Dilly is stunned when she hears about this. She wasn't home, and she asks, well, didn't Marcus tell you about that? And the cops say that they don't think Marcus ever noticed that Harley left. Police Chief Hickman will later tell a reporter, quote, "We had to watch almost a week's worth of video in real time." End quote. The cops also search Harley's room and they find a prepaid credit card that was news to Heather. Heather was under the impression Harley didn't have any money, and when Harley failed to come home on Saturday night, Heather checked all the change jars in the house to see if Harley had taken them. Oddly enough, the jars were still full, so it was looking like Harley not only didn't have a working cell phone with him, he also didn't have any money. At 10 a.m. on Sunday, December 22nd, Heather Dilly makes a Facebook post about Harley being missing. Later that same day, Port Clinton police share the post and they ask anyone with information regarding Harley's whereabouts to call them. Unfortunately, nobody comes through with any info. Any tangible info, anyway. 6 days after Harley disappears, the police interview Heather Dilly. They ask her if Harley can swim. Heather says that although he's never taken swimming lessons, Harley did learn to swim when they were in Florida. But Heather also makes it clear that Harley doesn't like the water, he doesn't like swimming, he doesn't spend a lot of time outside. Per Heather, Harley prefers staying inside and playing video games in his room. He's a little bit of a hermit, and if he does go outside, it's only to head over to his friends' houses. Hearing all of this reminds me of Sebastian Rogers. Heather also describes Harley as a kid who's not afraid to speak his mind, and he's somebody who doesn't have a filter. Meanwhile, police and rescue teams are actively searching a 150-acre area of both land and water that's around Port Clinton. Some officers are boots on the ground, others are using drones with infrared capabilities. There are people out with specially trained dogs, some are live scent dogs, some are cadaver dogs. In the sky, helicopters whirl as their occupants scan the landscape below. Thousands of flyers are posted across Ohio as well as the entire country. And the police asked neighbors of the Dillys to come forward with any info or any surveillance camera footage that could be useful to the investigation. Harley's classmates are also interviewed, as well as people he'd interacted with on social media, and some of those people live as far away as Washington State and Florida. And some of them have problematic histories, and they're people that Harley would likely not have spoken to in person. Harley's heavy use of social media, including Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, and Reddit, are complicating the search. Obviously, it's possible that he could have met up with a stranger he met online and disappeared into the ether. Harley's family makes emotional pleas on social media, speaking to Harley directly and saying, please, please come home. And they also ask for other people to stop judging them. By now, they've been on the receiving end of a lot of harassment and hate. People are accusing them of being terrible parents and of doing something to Harley themselves. In the Dillys case, all the harassment is misplaced. And that's because, as the police keep reminding the public, the parents are fully cooperating and they have no reason to suspect Heather or Marcus Dilly. When Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day come, the Dillys are incredibly distraught. They release a statement. It reads, "This is not the Christmas wish we had hoped for. We pray for the safe return of our son Harley. Harley, if you hear or read this, please come home. Your family misses you. You're not in trouble. We love you." End quote. The police are also being criticized. Some people are calling them inept, some are calling them corrupt, and others are saying they're complicit in Harley's disappearance. Pretty much no one is spared from the criticism and accusations, and online creators are coming up with all sorts of wild theories. But as they're getting skewered on social media, Port Clinton officers continue to work night and day. On Christmas Eve and Christmas too, instead of being with their own families, they're scouring surveillance camera footage, trying to find clues as to where Harley might have gone. They issue a statement on Christmas Day saying law enforcement is, quote, concerned for his safety. Detectives are also sifting through Harley's emails, his Snapchat account, and his Xbox. Other officers are following up on tips that Harley may have been spotted at some stores, but none of those tips pan out. Local businesses quickly raise $8,000 for a reward, and by now the police are checking with local hotels. They're comparing guest names and information to criminal records, but they don't find anybody staying at the hotels who has a criminal record other than minor traffic violations. The cops also search a garbage truck at the Republic Services building for DNA and other evidence. They don't find anything related to Harley. Days turn into weeks, and Harley still doesn't return home. Heather and Marcus just know in their hearts at this point that something is really wrong. Harley would never stay away from home this long. It's not until the evening of Monday, January 13th of 2020, 24 full days after Harley was last seen, that he's finally located. Tragically, it's not the happy ending Heather and Marcus had dreamed of. Harley is discovered deceased in the chimney of a vacant house across the street from the Dilly's residence. The house belongs to a couple who use it as a summer home, and they've been renovating it for several years, so nobody had been living there. It's mind-blowing for the Dillys to find out that Harley was so close to home and that he died because he got stuck in a chimney inside a house where all the windows and doors were closed and locked. So even if Harley had hollered at the top of his lungs, which I'm pretty sure he did at least for a while, nobody could have heard him. Here's how the police finally tracked Harley down. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, otherwise known as the BCI, received a lead about a house that the authorities were directed to on Fulton Street. Once inside the vacant home, the officers noticed clothing on the second floor. There was a maroon puffer jacket lying on the floor. The Port Clinton sheriff, Robert Hickman, took the puffer jacket over to the Dillys, and they were able to verify that it was Harley's. The sheriff then walked back to the empty house with the puffer jacket and hung it over a door. When the BCI agents arrived, they found the jacket hanging over a bedroom door, which is where the sheriff had put it. There was a metal vent plate near the jacket and a hole in the wall about 6 feet above it. The 6-inch hole was used for heat ventilation when there was a wood-burning stove in use. In the home's storage room, investigators found a pair of eyeglasses coated in dust below a second vent hole. So that was a vent hole from the chimney. Then the investigators reached their hands into the narrow chimney to check and see if there was any more evidence inside. And that's when they discovered Harley's body. They make it sound like they felt the body before they saw it. And this is why I'm not a police officer. I would lose my shit if I stuck my hand in something like that and I felt a body. Now, I would imagine they also smelled the body because it was very badly decomposed by that point. According to the BCI report, Harley was literally standing in the chimney with his feet on the floor of the chimney and his knees bent. This was not a chimney that led down to a fireplace with an opening. and it looked as if Harley had maybe stepped into the chimney from the roof of the house and then shimmied down feet first. It was just 9 inches by 13 inches, and Harley, despite weighing only 100 pounds, could not move in there. He didn't even have enough room for his chest and lungs to move and drink in any air. Both of his arms were bent with his elbows near his head, and one hand was near his back, and the other was near his chest. A layer of dust and debris covered his body. After the walls were excavated and Harley's body was removed, agents located a pair of gray sweatpants, a black shoe, 2 socks, and a flashlight on the floor of the chimney. The BCI report said, quote, "The position of the victim and associated articles of clothing located on the floor are consistent with the victim sliding/falling down the chimney. It's likely the clothing was pushed out from the chimney into the bedroom through the vent openings as Harley tried to create additional space inside the chimney to breathe. The rust-colored dust in the clothing collected is visually consistent with the color of the brick inside the chimney." End quote. Agents theorized that Harley entered the home through the roof. There were no signs that he'd been living in the house for the 25 days he was missing. Again, the doors and the windows were locked, and the area near the crawl space was undisturbed. And there were no other signs of Harley ever being out of the chimney and roaming around the house. And the homeowner's son told BCI agents that they'd been remodeling the house over the last couple of years, but had not accessed the second floor since spring, and no one had lived in the house since 2013. So that would have been 6 years before Harley got stuck in the chimney. The police announced at a press conference the next day that they believed Harley's death was an accident. The theory was that Harley climbed up an antenna tower outside the house to reach the roof. From there, he entered the chimney, likely trying to gain access to the house. The coroner ruled Harley's cause of death as compressive asphyxia, meaning Harley died because his chest and his lungs were compressed and he couldn't breathe. Coroner believes that Harley had become quickly trapped in the very narrow chimney, and pressure from the tight space had cut off his ability to breathe. The coroner later stated that while there was no way to accurately determine Harley's exact time of death, he believed the teen had likely died on the same day he went missing. And by the sounds of it, Harley never went to school on that Friday. Instead, he was last seen around 7 a.m., so he must have gone to the empty home and climbed into the chimney, maybe seeking a place to hang out all day before heading home. Maybe he was afraid to go to school on Friday. Maybe he was worried that the guy he hit or the guy he kicked in the cojones, maybe he was afraid they were going to come and get him. And we have to remember it was winter, so it was chilly outside. Remember that maroon jacket of Harley's that the police chief draped over a bedroom door in the empty house? Some nosy newsers who were standing outside and looking into the vacant house from street as crime scene investigators processed the scene, they saw the jacket hanging on the door, and they also saw a mattress. Some people took photos through lit up windows. Then true crime creators began to theorize that Harley's jacket hanging on the bedroom door and the mattress being there likely meant that Harley must have been kept in the house by an abductor. Police Chief Hickman was really upset about that, because he realized that he and his officers should have blocked the home's windows during the search, and especially during the time the crime scene investigators were doing their work. Remember, the sheriff had taken the puffer to the Dillys, and by them saying that, yes, that is Harley's coat, that confirmation was enough to allow the police to get a search warrant for the vacant house. And the police chief, after he hung the jacket up on the door, well, he didn't have an evidence collection kit with him at that moment, so that's why he left it there. Conspiracy theorists also took that jacket hanging on the door as proof that the police were hiding something. Soon after that, the chief and his officers received death threats. Protesters demonstrated in Port Clinton. They were accusing the police of a cover-up. When the cops learned that the protesters were planning to be at Harley's funeral, well, that's when the police chief issued a strong warning that anybody there without appropriate permits was going to be cited. The police also arrested people who were trespassing on the property where Harley had been found. There was one resident from Sandusky who used Facebook to arrange a protest, even though she herself was a Tier 3 SO who was barred from using the social media platform. You know, sometimes protesters and protests seem justified in some of these cases, like, say, Quentin Simon. But other times, I think the parents need to be given some grace and peace and patience. The Dillys hadn't harmed Harley. Harley, unfortunately, was a bit like a curious cat. He got himself into a jam that he couldn't extricate himself from. Now, knowing that Harley had been so close to home really upset Heather and Marcus, and they were already being judged for not reporting Harley missing right away. In fact, a petition was set up on change.org calling for a new law. It was going to be called Harley's Law, and it would require parents to report their missing children right away. And Heather wanted also to have a law that would force the school to let parents know when their kids don't show up for school. The Port Clinton police chief, Robert Hickman, was also beating himself up. He said in an interview, quote, "We had over 500 years of experience here every day, and we were all looking at each other and saying, what did we miss?" Hickman was broken up that he and his colleagues had not been able to get to Harley before Harley died. But of course, if what the coroner had to say is true, then it's likely nobody could have saved Harley from being asphyxiated in the narrow chimney. Probably the only thing that could have saved Harley would have been him going to school instead of deciding to go down a chimney without knowing how narrow the chimney was and where it led. Note to self: never assume a chimney leads to an open fireplace, and never assume that it's wide enough for a body. This is such a tragic story. Poor Harley was in that chimney, removing clothing, taking his jacket off, pushing it through those holes, desperately trying to make himself smaller so he could breathe. Just talking about it and describing it makes me feel claustrophobic. And remember, his phone was broken, so when he got stuck, he couldn't even dial 911 or call his parents. That's another thing. Don't leave home without a fully charged and working cell phone. And let your parents know where you are. And for God's sakes, just don't crawl into a chimney. The more I hear about this case, I do now wonder if Josh Maddox, who was also found deceased in a chimney with his clothing items outside the fireplace, that one makes me wonder a little bit if he took those clothes off also to get a little more room to breathe. But of course, there's still questions as to whether he could have even gotten into the chimney from the top. And there are also questions about how could his clothes be on the floor outside of the fireplace and a very massive, heavy breakfast bar be pushed up against the fireplace. If you don't know about that case, check out my video. I released it earlier this week. It's really interesting. And of course, all of this makes me wonder if maybe Sebastian Rogers could have really gotten stuck somewhere in a chimney, and maybe that's why he hasn't been found. But unlike Harley and unlike Josh, Sebastian went missing in the middle of the night from his locked home. He wasn't out running around, supposedly. And also, Harley and Josh's families were proactive when it came to searching for them, and also when it came to talking to the media. Harley was found deceased within a month. Josh, sadly, wasn't found for 7 entire years. But both of these families, they didn't leave the home. They stayed living there while their loved ones were missing. And they didn't speak to social media creators instead of to the authorities and seasoned reporters. So I'm just trying to point out that the way that Katie and Chris Proudfoot have handled Sebastian's case and his disappearance is quite different from the parents of Josh and Harley. Let me know if you think Harley Dilly could have been saved if his parents had reported him missing on Friday, December 20th. Let me know if you find them to be less than stellar parents for not reporting him missing right away when he didn't come home on Friday. And I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories.
Thanking the community for their continued support during this investigation. This is not the outcome anyone wanted, but thanks to your help and support, we have some closure for the family. We believe Harley Dilly was recovered last evening in a house located at 507 Fulton Street. The house had previously been checked multiple times. There was no evidence of forced entry. The house's windows were locked and the doors were secured and a lockbox on the rear door. Since a lockbox can allow multiple individuals to access a house, and the house was vacant, we pursued entry into the house. Harley's coat, glasses were discovered on the second floor of the house next to a brick chimney.
This isn't him. He should have already had multiple baths. He eats certain colors, his sensory processing. He loves his hot fries. He loves his pizzas, and it's got to be bacon pepperoni. He loves his chicken patty, certain kind of chicken patty. I mean, this isn't his nature at all. Okay. And, my parents were like, oh, just stay positive, stay positive. But me as a mom, this is starting to get too real. Okay. This isn't him. He's a mama's boy. I mean, through and through, he's a mama's boy. He loves to give him hugs, And then he just saw his niece, who he hadn't seen in 2 years, on Thursday night. So it was like he saw her, Julie, who was there helping me to get the house ready for my niece to come over. They were talking and stuff, and he never goes with us to our friend's house on Sunday because he likes to stay home, hang with his friends, watch his games. He loves football. He's a big commentator. And Julie said, are you going to grace us with your presence this time? And he's like, well, there's presents, And then she talked about putting an Xbox in her room. Because from the last time the police were at our house when he attacked his dad, that's when we told the police, okay, take the Xbox box, let him think you're throwing it away. We never gave it back to him. So he's just about gaming.